And anyone can do it. If you're listening to this, you are a leader in your life. No matter what, there's people involved in your life. And you can really make special things happen when you embrace yourself and have that confidence to become a leader.
You have that degree of leadership within you at any position.
Even though it can be difficult, tricky to look yourself in the mirror and say, oh, this is something I need to work on, the outcomes, the big vision, the picture is going to be worth its weight in gold.
I'm encouraging you to focus on those one or two things, and then guess what? Everything else, the finances, the way you feel, your vitality, your bliss, the way you show up around people, leveling up, becoming the best version of yourself, all that will lift once I'm able to focus in and improve those one or two different areas.
Start asking you questions, and that's a great indicator that you're leveling yourself up.
Once I understood, I looked at the man in the mirror and I said, you know what? I have got to work harder on myself. I've got to be able to ask myself the hard questions. Am I masking things? Am I Superman? Am I Clark Kent?
Think about what's possible for you, and over time, as we always say, you can make a difference. Leadership is the ability to guide, influence, and inspire others to achieve a common goal. It involves setting a vision, motivating, and empowering people to take action, and creating an environment that fosters growth, collaboration, and success. Leadership is not just about authority or power. It's about serving others, making thoughtful decisions, and leading by example. True leadership involves self-awareness, empathy, and a commitment to continual improvement, both for oneself and for other people being led. That's a definition of leadership that I just read right there. And most people might listen to that or hear it and be like, that's not me. I'm not doing those things. I'm not the person at the front of the room leading an organization or having some big purpose or vision and making a movement where people are following behind because you're the leader. Well, that is not the only form of leadership that exists. In fact, there's many forms of leadership, and the most important one, the one you have to start with first, is self-leadership. And anyone can be a leader. Everyone is a leader. You just might not know it. You might not think of yourself as that person. I think when you think of leader, you think that guy in the suit or the gal in the suit that's leading an organization, and they have the microphone. But what we don't understand, leadership is about asking good questions, being calm when everyone else is panicking, giving encouragement to someone, listening well. That's all qualities of leadership. Think about those things when someone does that for you, when someone listens to you. Man, you remember that person. They impacted you. When they ask good questions, when they really understand where it is that you're coming from and they have your back, right? That's true. That's true leadership. And it's so small. We wouldn't consider that leadership, but that's where it starts. Because once you're that kind of person that focuses in on doing those things, then it can grow into impacting people and really making things move. So today we're going to talk about becoming a leader and leading yourself first. And anyone can do it. If you're listening to this, you are a leader in your life. No matter what, there's people involved in your life. And you can really make special things happen when you embrace yourself and have that confidence to become a leader. So yeah, we're going to talk all about that today. And at the end of this, you will be leading yourself all the way to wherever you want to go. Sean, what do you say to that?
So there's 5 pillars that I have learned over the last several years that I wanted to share with you, and that we're going to be sharing these pillars through the episode. And they are authenticity, discipline, vulnerability, accountability, and impact. And so with these pillars, looking back in my own leadership journey, it's allowed me to really build a solid foundation to get to where I am today. And so one of the things that when I reflect back on the last 3 years is that if there's a mirror in front of you, if you're getting ready listening to this podcast and you're getting ready in your bathroom, or maybe you're in the car and you're looking at the rear view mirror. Don't do that if you're driving, maybe if you're parked. And what do you see when you look at that mirror? You see yourself. The mirror is a reflection of you and where you are in your life, in your journey right now. And so the reason I'm able to say that is because I had to take a look at the guy in the mirror 3 years ago before I was able to level up in my journey of becoming the best version of myself in my leadership journey. Once I realized this was a huge transformation for me, because I understood I could take the mask off and be more self-aware to learn about myself and what drove me, my values, my beliefs, what allowed me to come alive, my authentic self. See, when you're not looking at yourself in the mirror, which is pillar one, then you're going through life aimlessly. What values, what is dictating your actions and your activities? What is driving you on a daily basis? I've asked this question to a lot of my friends recently, and I'll ask this question to you is, when the next person that you're talking to, your neighbor, your friend, your best friend, your mom, are you your authentic self? Can you be real with them? Can you be raw and real? Or are you masking something? Are you covering up something? And when I ask that question, the people in my community, they tell me, they're like, I'm 50-50. That was me too 3 years ago. And I'll tell you what, it pulls your peace. It doesn't allow you to come alive. It doesn't allow you to live your best life. So look at yourself in the mirror. The second pillar is going to be you, and I wanted to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I had a question to you, and because I was asking myself this question, like when are you a follower and then you suddenly become a leader? Like at what point, what moment do you kind of transition or cross over? Because I remember the days of kind of following, wasn't even on my radar to be a leader, and then all of a sudden you feel that rush, that urge, and you're saying things to people, and you're like, oh, hold on a second, I'm actually moving this group in a certain direction. And I was trying to think, like, when did that occur for me? And I think because I think it's maybe a confidence thing, competence. Being competent in something typically aligns with having some form of authority, right? And so, which allows you to be authentic, like which is what you just said, right? Like when you have that genuine experience, when you speak, you're speaking from truth, like what you've experienced, and people can feel that. You can't fake it, right? Which is polar. If you're faking, it's not authentic. And so, like, when does that? Do you remember a moment for yourself when you kind of felt that the first time? Was it on the baseball field, or where was it for you?
Yeah. So for me, it was once I understood, I looked at the man in the mirror and I said, you know what? I have got to work harder on myself. I've got to be able to ask myself the hard questions. Am I masking things? Am I Superman? Am I Clark Kent? Once I understood that I was being Superman to everybody, I was being that chameleon. I was masking when I was with my wife, with my friend, with my customer. Then once I realized that, I was able to go to work and actually start putting in the deep work, which was the self-awareness of what actually brought me alive. I didn't have all the answers at the time. And this was the transformation for me. One of the key pivotal moments was what John Maxwell calls clasp hands. So after you take a look at yourself in the mirror, then, okay, I need some help, Ewan, for transformation. I can't do this alone. Okay. Superman can do these things alone, but Clark Kent, the Sean, needs help. I need guidance. And that can go anything from a coach, mentor, from therapy, from a friend, from a mastermind group, a coaching group, a level up and live community, whatever you want to call it. If you're looking at YouTube right now, you have to have clasp hands. Let's go at this together. That's where the transformation really started occurring for me, because it requires a partnership. It requires that friend. And let me tell you something. If you listen to this, listen, it never happens solo. For 33 years of my entire life, I tried to do things solo. It had only got me to where I was, which was unfulfilled, burnt, stuck, lost, unfulfilled. That's when I called up the group of 6 guys and we started the mastermind group, because I knew that I had to have some partners going into this to hold me accountable, that were going to be able to see things in a different perspectives. Now, this also ran congruent to what we call a ladder. So picture yourself, it's Christmas time, you put up some Christmas lights, you got a ladder, and you're putting that ladder up. And for me, the way I look at it is, you know what? Transformation also is helping others rise with me. Success can be lonely, but as a leader, why not pull others that want to go to a better place? And so for me, it was important to hold that ladder so that they could climb to their potential as well. Once I understood, after looking at myself in the mirror, joined hands in partnerships with these men, and then I was able to create that ladder, build that ladder for them, and pull them with me. Any thoughts on that, Ewan, before we keep rolling?
Yeah, it's interesting when you're speaking there, clasping the hands, you do, because if you don't have anyone around you, like who would you be leading? And so when people do enter the scene, then there has to be a relationship with them with the right intention, which that's what you when I hear you say that, it was like the intention was to go somewhere, do something, and it was a leadership type thing. What I also heard when you said clash the hands, you almost have to come to a place within yourself first. When because you were the Superman, and then being the Clark Kent, it's almost a combining of the two. It's not separate because the Superman version of you is awesome. Like we wouldn't not want that, but you also have to bring in the Clark Kent version, right? And so it's almost like this coming together, clasping hands within yourself, which is self-compassion, self-love. Because without those, if you don't have self-compassion and self-love, and then you're leading others from a place where you can't even do it for yourself, then it will bleed into that leadership, and it can go south very quickly. And so you had this amazing moment, like this epiphany, where you brought the two together, Clark Kent and Superman, and then you took both of their strengths, and then that really brought people together. I mean, think about all that has come together since that moment. So to the listener, how could you come together with yourself, like the version of you that's maybe not authentic, and then look at where is there the inauthenticity, and then combine those strengths from who you currently are, who you may be faking to be, and match it with the true part of you that you're not letting out. And I think that's the beginning of impact on other people. Because when you are that person, it's very rare, because most people are faking to a certain degree. And when that authenticity comes out, it radiates energy. Like people can feel the truth, and people start listening. And so, that's what I hear when I hear you say that. Man, I witnessed that too, which was very cool.
Yeah. And so that leads into the transformation of heart. And it's exactly what you're saying. Your point is transformation occurs when people embrace good values. And because of looking at myself in the mirror, not really fully understanding and doing all the self-awareness and not having everything perfect, but I wanted to join hands because I needed that accountability. I needed that partnership. I needed that accountability group to really help me and guide me along the way. Because like you said, the best way to learn something is actually, what you're learning as a student of the game is to teach it, whether it's podcasts, whether it's in person, whatever you're going through, teach it, and you'll learn it not only along the way, but you'll learn it that much more because you're the one being, teaching it. And so that transformation occurs when the people around you also embrace the good values in their hearts and lives them out. And so by doing the work by myself and then doing the work with them and being able to hear their different perspectives, to me, that's where the catalyst of the transformation happens, when you're able to have those conversations. And then when you're having these conversations in a round table, it's like, why do we break bread, right? Why do we eat? Why do we have family, Thanksgiving and Christmas? It's sitting around that table and having conversations with other individuals, learning values, sharing their lives, sharing their experiences. This is where growth transformation happens. And we are super intentional about it in the Level Up Live community in the mastermind group that we've had these last few years. And we're intentional about, because by being around this table, that's where we're able to put these together and learn from each other's values and beliefs and different perspectives. And then it brings to a bridge to connect everything that we're trying to do to help people cross over. So if I'm talking to a younger version of myself 3 years ago, I'm going to come in and I'm going to say, hey, look at yourself in the mirror. Somebody listening to this, it's important to be self-aware. Clark Kent, Superman, clasp hands, join a partnership, get accountability partner. Don't go at this as solo. Next, look at it as a ladder. Help others along the way. You don't have it all figured out, but that's going to help you learn it that much faster by teaching it to others, and hold that ladder for them so they can climb to their potential. The heart in that process is going to be the transformation to align good values and beliefs to live out and to continue to grow, because iron sharpens iron. And then we surround ourselves in a table consistently, intentionally moving forward to learn these values, learn these shared experiences, to continue to level each other up. And then ultimately, like you said, on that impact, we want to bridge and help people cross over so we can serve and impact more.
When you say the Superman to Clark Kent, everybody does that. Everyone does it. They'll do it in their own way. But when we say Superman, it is bulletproof, steel, looks amazing, right? Like no weaknesses. And we do that out of protection of the heart. We do it to protect, because we don't want to be vulnerable because it hurts. It's almost like death. It almost feels like to experience that is so intense that we will do unbelievable things to avoid it. And yet when you are that, you can't really learn much. You can't let the guard down to be vulnerable, to say the things that someone might need to hear, to say the thing back to you that would impact you and let you grow. And we all do it. This is everyone. So, you listening, where are you being the Superman, which isn't helping? The Superman has so many great qualities, but to be that all the time, it does not help. And to add heart into this, right? You have to be vulnerable with heart. You can't have a guard around it if you're going to impact other people. And so it takes great strength. It takes Superman effort to let the guard down and be Clark Kent. And so I think everyone to be a good true leader has the strength, the boldness to open up their heart and possibly be open to, not possibly, guaranteed they're going to experience some pain. But when you know that you're big enough and the outcomes and the impact that you have on other people, it's worth it. And then you start realizing there's so much strength behind it that the Clark Kent ends up being stronger than the Superman ever was. And so I think really focusing in on that heart portion is worth its weight in gold.
Yeah. So I'm embracing that vulnerability and then seeking growth. That's where the game changed. I mean, in this journey, when I reflect back and I'm like, what really changed is when I was able to put myself out there, drop the mask, the Superman, Clark Kent, become the Clark Kent, actually be vulnerable, embrace that vulnerability. When I called up the 6 guys and said, hey, you want to start up a mastermind group? If I reflect back in the last 30 plus years, that was probably the most vulnerable place in my life where I called up these guys. And then what I had learned when I called up these guys is they were immediately within a matter of 30 days, having this weekly meeting and sharing my vulnerabilities. Guess what happened to them? They were able to embrace their vulnerabilities and share what was going on in their lives and resonate and connect with what was going on. So I think that's where, by understanding that, by embracing that vulnerability and sharing that and willing to go through these pillars, I think that's where it's really going to make a big difference and impact in your life, in your self-leadership. Because again, you can't do this alone. And that's another reason why I think we are called to do what we're doing. And the cause is the bigger picture here. It's the purpose of we know there's other individuals out there that have experienced, because we've just talked to them and we've coached them and we've been listening to people's stories and challenges and struggles. And so we've created a product to level up and live in our community. And so we're super excited about, because we're creating these safe places, this accountability, this bridge to help others get to where they want to go. And I don't think without these pillars, you can look inwards and be able to do the things that you want to do without the different pillars to build that solid foundation.
In that when you said it was one of the most vulnerable you'd been when you had called up the guys for the mastermind group, can you speak to that so the people listening can live through you on what that was like, that experience? Because like you said, it was very difficult. It was one of the most vulnerable moments. Most people will avoid that at all costs. And there's no blueprint for them to know what it is to put themselves out there, because, and maybe you could speak to what your reasons were, because there's fear of rejection there. You have to be vulnerable. What if someone says no? Like, all the things that go into that. Like, what could you maybe speak to that people could hear, and myself included, that we could take away as a nugget to also maybe do something like that?
Yeah. So once you understand the pillars, you're like, you know what? Okay, I'm going to look myself in the mirror. I know I need to make a change. I know I want to level up. I know I want to look inwards and go through this journey. And so now I need to embrace this vulnerability. So for me, it was, okay, at that point, sure, it was vulnerable for me, but I looked at the bigger picture, I looked at the North Star, and we talk about this all the time in the episodes in the podcast, is the reasoning behind making this phone call, this text message and email. It's an obstacle, it's adversity, it's vulnerability, and you're making the phone calls. But more importantly, but let's look beyond that. Let's look beyond that obstacle or that challenge of putting yourself out there and making the same phone call. Instead, I looked at it and I'm like, this is who I want to become. And I know what's worked for me by doing the work, by being self-aware, looking myself in the mirror. And I know I need to create partnerships. And that's all that went through my mind is, this is what I need to do to get to where I want to go.
Yeah.
And so whether I look like a fool, it doesn't matter to me, because I knew at the time there was a degree of me that understood that there's other men out there that are in isolation, that are experiencing what I'm experiencing, Ewan,
Yeah.
Clark Kent, Superman. And they're lonely. And it's funny because when I thought of these men and I called them up, it reminded me of myself, because I knew to a certain degree what was going on in these men's lives, right? I knew that you were kind of solo and doing your own thing. And I knew, some of the other men that I knew a little bit about them, but I had listened to their language and their body language and their actions to a certain degree. I knew that they were in isolation as well.
Yeah.
And I think if any man's listening to this, I would be willing to bet that you are probably experiencing that as well. And that's why I'm so passionate about creating a community where men don't have to feel like they're in isolation.
I ask that question a lot now, just kind of slyly, just to see what the responses are. Is what's the purpose? Like, why are you doing that? Like something that's important to those people, and they can't tell me why. And then they're also confused on why they're struggling with it.
Yes.
And it goes hand in hand. If you're struggling in an area, it doesn't matter what area, weight, food, finances. If you are just doing it for numbers' sake, no wonder you're struggling. Once you connect that why, the purpose, the vision that makes it worth the failure and rejection, once you've figured that out, and this is not some kind of, you just select it, you will know in your soul when it's right, when you've got that, you've thought it all through, kept asking yourself why. Well, why do I want to lose the weight? Why do I want to be debt free? Why do I want to do these things? And then you ask again, well, why do I want that? Well, because I want to be fit. I want to be healthy. Okay, but why? Well, whatever that is, you play it all the way out. And then you get to this thing is, I wish we could put it in a pill so people just swallow it and be like, kablam, I got the feeling, I'm on it. I'm pushing all the way through. There's still a lot of things to work through with that, right? There's still, however your personality and genetic makeup is, but no matter what, once you get that feeling, that clarity or vision of purpose, discipline is almost not required at that point, because you're compelled to do it. When I hear you say that, and people listening, how can they do something big, right? Because maybe they're not putting a mastermind group together, but how can they put themselves out there where they're afraid of the rejection, afraid of the failure? What is it that they need to not be worried about those things, to be able to push through and lead themselves through the difficulties? How can they lead themselves? What do they have to have in their mind to be able to push through? Because once they have that, that's purpose and vision. And be able to get clear on that, get in a community of people who are getting clear, to where it's like you breathe the air of clarity. And you're going to start asking people, hey, what's your purpose behind that? And they're going to be like, if they can't tell you right away, man, there's a huge disconnect. And once you see it yourself, it's fascinating how many people are kind of walking around lost, alone, which is, the reason the mastermind group was started, and why we've created a community where people can come and get that environment and start adopting it themselves.
When you embrace these 5 pillars, authenticity, discipline, vulnerability, accountability, and it ultimately leads to impact and serving more individuals, I feel like by leading ourselves in that journey, this is where we create that foundation of influence that empowers others and builds that culture of growth. And I feel like that's what we're doing with our Level Up and Live community, with the people around us, the businesses. It all runs congruent. It all runs vertical, because you listening to this, even though maybe you don't consider yourself a leader, you have the leadership degree within you. And it just takes these pillars and, like Ewan said, this focus in plugging yourself into a community, whether that's the Level Up and Live community or a simple friend, that's somebody that's wanting to level up. And I feel like that's going to be the biggest shift in transformation to get to where you want to go.
On that note, level up and live.
Level up and live.